Hello, beautiful beings of light, and welcome to another episode of the Magick Weaver Podcast. This is your host, Anna Kinkela, and on today's episode, I am going to be sharing a behind-the-scenes look at an easeful six-figure launch in my business. I love doing behind-the-scenes episodes because I really get to share both my challenges and my celebrations with you. And so my hope is that you are going to learn from both inside of this podcast episode. And one of my intentions as I share about this easeful, expansive launch in my business is that we're really going to be looking at a couple of different areas. So we're going to be tapping into leadership components inside of a launch that start way before a launch even begins. We're going to be talking about some of the nervous system components that I really anchored in order to make this launch successful. And we're also going to be talking about the strategic pieces that created so much of the ease that me and my team experienced as we launched this program. And so we're going to be talking about all of that. And I'm also going to be talking about the history behind this program. The program that I'm referencing here is Nectar. And Nectar is my signature program on healing the receiving wound with money. So it really supports women to expand their receiving paradigm in their business through the lens of their nervous system. It's a 5-month healing program. And so I'm really going to be sharing the history behind this particular offering because it is really relevant to, the success that I created not only through the tangible results in my business, but also through the results that my clients are seeing through this program. And that is really my ultimate intention is, we're here to make an impact, right? We're here to support our clients to expand in their life, to expand in their business, whatever your focus is. And I truly believe that when, we implement nervous system business growth into our business, we are not only, creating success in terms of the clients and the money that we're welcoming in, but we're also creating an incredible impact with the programs that we're launching and how we are supporting others. So I'm going to talk about the history of this program and how I really calibrated and came into resonance with the program through my nervous system within my own leadership that allowed me to show up really powerfully inside of the launch, helped me to tap into my own confidence and conviction around this program, and how, really me being in resonance with the soul of this offering in relationship with it, also created a program that delivered on what I promised to my clients, right? And so we're going to talk about, the history of the program, and I'm also going to go into the first launch of Nectar because it definitely paved the pathway for the ease that I experienced within this launch. I'm going to let you in on a couple of numbers as it concerns Nectar. So we closed the launch about 2 weeks ago, and we closed at $139,000 in sales, which means that I'm counting pay-in-fulls as well as payment plans inside of that. So it's 6 figures in total that are going to be paid out over the next 5 to 8 months, depending which payment plan folks entered in on. We have a total of 28 women inside of the program, which is exactly double the amount that we had in our first cohort of Nectar. And so it was just incredible to be able to welcome in that many women for this round. And I'm so excited to, probably even double that amount the next time that we launch. And so, I'll be talking about how the first launch really paved the pathway for this launch to be easeful, even though we doubled the amount of women that we welcomed in. And then I'm going to talk about, some of the strategic components of this particular launch that made it such a success, and some of the challenges that also came up within the launch that we are going to improve upon for the next time that we bring this program out into the world for cohort 3 in 2023. So in terms of sharing the history of Nectar with you, one of the reasons I'm sharing it inside of this podcast episode is that one of the underpinnings for me with the nervous system business growth is that it's a relational approach to the ecosystem of our business. And what I mean by that is that your nervous system, my nervous system, is in relationship with every component of your business that makes it successful. Meaning you are in relationship with the energy of the business itself, the mission, right, of your business. You are in relationship with every offering that you have inside of your business, and you are in relationship with the dream clients that you want to welcome in, as well as the money that you desire to receive, right? And so all of that is a type of relationship. And within that relationship, your nervous system has certain reactions. Those reactions range from, expansion to contraction, and most often you're holding both in your body, right? And when I really interweave nervous system business growth into my own business, I am looking at how am I in relationship with the soul of this offering? How am I in relationship with the dream clients that I desire inside of this offering? What's showing up within me? And what is the soul of the offering communicating to me that it wants me to channel out into the world, that it wants the people who are meant for this offering to hear so that they know they are meant to be in the space, right? So the way that I message, the way that I set up my launches, the timing of my launches, the action steps that I take as part of my launch are all really generated from the relationship that I have with the offering itself. And when we are in true congruence and resonance with the offering, when we are in truth with the offering that we are meant to put out into the world, that is where ease really starts to land into our business. The times where we experience, constriction, or everything feels hard, or like we're, climbing up a mountain and it just feels like such a struggle, is when something is out of resonance in our own nervous system with the offering in and of itself. Oftentimes this is very unconscious. It's an unconscious process, which is exactly why the body and the nervous system is so powerful for you to tap into incredible results for your business, incredible ease, because it literally shows you the way. It shows you what is out of resonance in the relational field between you and your offering, you and your ideal clients, you and your business, and tells you what you need to adjust, right? It shows you the pathway forward. And so when it came to this particular Nectar launch, this offering came through my field in springtime of last year. So just a little bit over a year ago. Something pinged for me. I was seeing a pattern with all of my clients. It was something that I was working with my clients in terms of the receiving wound with money. My own relational work with money is something that had been taking place for 2 years, right? And so this money work, right? Everything that I was doing inside of my sessions with clients already was really wanting to be shared in a more public way. And Nectar as a program wanted to be birthed. And that became especially clear exactly a year ago in June of last year, when it was like, there's a group program that needs to be put out into the world. It's going to heal the receiving wound with money. And this program is going to book out. And that's really what came in first and foremost, is like, you need to put this out and it's going to book out and it's going to be really transformative. When I received that, my immediate response was fear, right? It really pushed on my edges. And even though I had been doing this work with my clients behind the scenes, I wasn't talking about the work publicly, right? I wasn't talking about money. I wasn't really, talking about how women could heal the receiving wound. it was something that, I did with my clients, but I didn't, share with my Instagram audience overall. And all of the things started to emerge for me in this space, right? I started to have a lot of fear of judgment popping up. I started to, worry about people rejecting me, about people not loving me, right? About people leaving me and never talking to me again. I had a lot of fear about, my past mentors' opinions of me. If I were to start talking about money, there was all of these things that came up internally, right? And I had a lot of resistance. One of the things that, Liz Gilbert mentioned in one of her books called Big Magic is she really talked about the fact that, creative ideas come to us, they knock on our door, and we can either choose to say yes or choose to say no. And if we say no, that creative idea is going to find another home. And if we say yes, we get to take action on that idea and run with it, right? And so I really found myself at a bit of a crossroads. I really felt like this program wanted to be birthed through me. It was pushing all of my edges. It was activating me. And above all, one of the things that I felt deep in my body was that I was really meant to speak out this work, and that the program was actually inviting me into my own deeper leadership and into my own deeper capacity to hold these kinds of powerful containers for women. And I find this to be true for both myself and for the women that I support, that the offerings, that the programs that want to come through us are also activating our own leadership edges, because they're actually meant to activate you to the point of you embodying the leader who holds that program, who holds that sacred space for other people, right? And so I usually see clients who, if they're launching an intimacy program on relationships, or, they're launching a program about grief, right? That they are getting activated in exactly those areas of life as they're about to head into the launch, because the offering, when it's really connected with your soul, is activating you into your next level of leadership, to be able to hold that level of leadership in your business, to be able to hold the people who are meant to be in the space with you. And so it's a beautiful initiation process that you get to step into, where you get to hold all of your parts and also deeply align with the deeper truth that you know in your body, which is, I am meant to bring forward this medicine into the world. And this was very much reflected in my own process with Nectar from the very beginning. I felt the edge, I felt the fear, I felt the constriction, I had so much resistance, and yet deep down, I felt the truth that this program was meant to come through me, that I was meant to be held by me, that I had medicine to share that women needed to experience. And so what I decided to do was I decided to say yes and to allow myself to honor my leadership edges, right? And so what that looked like for me is I really just allowed myself to channel out the message that wanted to come through me. And at this point, I didn't commit to a timeline for the launch. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a sales page up, right? I was just allowing myself to be in the creative exchange in relationship with this offering. My nervous system in relationship with the nervous system of the soul of this offering, listening and allowing myself to speak from that channel, right? Allowing it to be heard and seen out in the world. And the more that I spoke about the receiving wound with money, the more that I talked about and educated women about this, the more messages I started receiving where women felt such deep resonance with what I was talking about. They were recognizing themselves in my words, right? They were like, yes, this is me. You're speaking to me. I've always felt this deep in my body, but never had the words to describe it. And it was through this process of me actually just honoring the message that wanted to come through, really allowing myself for a moment to disconnect from any launch process, any like, what is this program going to be? Just allowing myself to honor the message that created such a beautiful foundation for people to be magnetized to my field for that reason, right? So I was creating content and messaging around this program before I even knew what it was going to look like. Before I'd even created a sales page or talked about it, I hinted to my audience that something was coming because it was my way of claiming the program without fully committing to a plan of how it was going to come out into the world or when. But I hinted that something was coming, and I just talked about the receiving wound with money. I talked and I let myself step into the leadership of being someone who could talk about money and feel her power inside of that, feel her own leadership inside of that. And that in and of itself allowed me to build my confidence in holding that space of being able to talk about it loudly, of showing myself to the world in that way, and being okay with being rejected and not loved, right? Holding the fact that the people who really needed the medicine were going to come to me, the people who no longer resonated with what I had to share would leave, right? And that in and of itself, that process allowed me to really inhabit the space of being able to hold this edge within myself and being able to hold the people inside of this container, right? So that period, before I even created the sales page or launched, really built my leadership capacity and really built the capacity within my own nervous system to hold all parts of myself, the scared parts and the parts that knew that this was in true alignment with me and what I was meant to be creating in the world. And what that also allowed to do on the back end is to really nurture my audience really well with educational content, with expert level content that positioned me as the person who, could teach you about the receiving wound and can support you to heal the receiving wound with money, right? So it created a really beautiful foundation for people to find me, for people to start following me, for people to come into my world and to know that I was the person that they needed to go to for this kind of work before I even launched, right? And so when I announced the actual waitlist enrollment for Nectar, which wasn't until September, October of last year, the program, the waitlist launch of Nectar for the very first cohort, it booked out in 1 week in waitlist enrollment. I didn't even go into regular enrollment with Nectar because my audience was so well informed about the receiving wound with money, about, how you can shift your receiving paradigm and expand it. I had done live videos. I had really set myself up for success for that waitlist launch to convert really well within a week span of time. And so it allowed the launch process for that very first cohort of Nectar to be very easeful. Because truly all I was doing was I was showing up, I was sharing from my channel, from my own creative force. I was putting it out into the world. And then, once we were set to release the waitlist launch, people hopped onto the waitlist, purchased right off the waitlist. I had 2 sales calls in total. The cost of Nectar is $5,555 now. It was $4,222 in waitlist enrollment. So it was a discount of more than $1,000 if you hopped in on the waitlist price. And that was a huge incentive for people to say yes sooner rather than later, right? And so not only was it really easeful because I had really prepared my audience for the waitlist enrollment, I'd given them a lot of valuable educational content. I had established myself as, the authority on healing the receiving wound with money. But there was also a considerable waitlist discount that really incentivized people to jump in before waitlist enrollment ended. And so we booked out the program in waitlist enrollment. It was incredible. We actually overbooked it with 14 women. We were meant to have 12, but we overbooked it with 14 women. And that in and of itself was such an easeful experience. It was to the point where we actually had multiple women reaching out after the launch ended, wanting to get in. And apart from the couple of people that I let in on the back end, we just weren't able to support that amount of women because the healing work inside of Nectar is extremely intimate. So our pod size are limited. And I wasn't able to support welcoming in any other women. So what we did was, we just continued to welcome people onto the wait list with plans of, offering some bonuses for the next cohort and enrollment, which set us up really beautifully for this second launch that we had that ended up being a 6-figure launch. One of the things that I want to stress about this process is, when we talk about momentum in business, this program has truly just had continual momentum without me promoting it directly for months. And it's a true testament to when you're in true resonance with the soul of an offering, it actually just has natural momentum that's tied to it that lasts way beyond the end of a launch, and really can support you to calibrate to a second launch beautifully and set you up for a success for another launch of that same program. And so this is what was true for Nectar in and of itself, that, for months I had people reaching out about the program. They had heard about it on the podcast. They had seen my content. And so, from the start of the first cohort of Nectar up until we started launching this latest cohort, we actually ended up having close to 300 people on the wait list in and of itself. So without me promoting Nectar directly after the launch, I didn't mention Nectar other than saying, hey, just had a Nectar call. These are the celebrations from the Nectar call. Apart from mentions like that, people kept adding themselves to the wait list really organically. I had no paid traffic going to that link. There was no direct traffic to it. We did a waitlist enrollment, early enrollment in January of this year, that I promoted on stories. And then another one in March for about a week. We offered a discount. But other than that, there were 300 people on the waitlist that just found the link, resonated with the program, and popped on. So it just had incredible momentum from that first launch. And some of the content that I posted on Instagram also contributed to that organic growth of the waitlist. But I wasn't selling the program in and of itself, right? I was talking about the receiving wound. I was talking about money. I was talking about expanding your receiving paradigm in your business, how your nervous system impacts your business, right? And so, the thing that I'll say about Nectar is Nectar as a program came through my channel, and Nectar as a program also really leverages my unique skill set and the medicine that I have to give to the world. From the space of something I'm really passionate about that I've been working with women on, right? And so it's a program that is in true resonance with who I am, with my energy, and with the healing work and the expansion work that I support women with. And so that kind of level of alignment just creates tons of ease for you in your business. And so after that first launch, that was incredible. We had this, growing wait list that I didn't know was growing until, the latter part of the year when we were finishing up the year and just kind of checking on the wait list and seeing how much it had grown. But I wasn't doing any wait list nurturance, right? There was nothing that was going out to the waitlist in particular to like tend to these new people who were popping on. These were people who were all new to my world. And for the purposes of just kind of grounding in, the first Nectar cohort was actually primarily people who were completely new to my world, except for maybe 4 or 5 people who used to be my previous clients or who somehow had knowledge of me, who stepped into the program. But otherwise, these were people who had just found me within a month and stepped into, you know, a $5,000 program off the bat, which is incredible. And I really think it's a testament to like being in resonance in your nervous system and launching from that space within your nervous system in relationship to the offering and the dream clients that you want to receive inside the space. And so, you know, I think one of the pieces that we are working to integrate as we move forward with Nectar is that we are doing a better job of nurturing the waitlist between launches and really providing value to that audience who is primarily going to be new to my world, who is just getting to know me and what I do. And so one of the goals that we have is to really start to shift Nectar into a completely back-end launch process where I'm not even publicly launching it on Instagram anymore. And we're primarily just enrolling through the wait list that we have that's very robust, and nurturing the audience there and creating specific sequences that will sell people into the offering and book the offering out without me even announcing it publicly anymore. So the piece that we really didn't step into is the nurturance of the waitlist audience. And the couple of times that we opened up the waitlist for enrollment, it was kind of rolling enrollment, but we did do certain like pushes to encourage sales. And one happened in January, like I said. And that push was promoting the waitlist pricing one more time before I switched it to full pricing. And we had about 5 people join the program 5 months ahead of time. A lot of them paid in full. Some of them paid on extended payment plans and stepped into the space. And then we did another promotion in March, end of February, actually, like beginning of March when I got married, and I did like $300 off. And we had a person or 2 join during that. So we already had 7 people in before we even began this most recent launch of Nectar. And we had then started nurturing the wait list at about March and started, you know, sharing client success stories, started sharing about Nectar, started sharing about my own money story, started sharing educational content to the wait list. So we were really nurturing that wait list to get ready for the launch in April. And kind of starting to think about that a little bit more strategically for this next launch coming next year. So when we ended up kind of officially opening doors to the program, we actually had a period where it was pretty silent for about a week. No one joined Nectar for a week of us like officially opening doors. And I'd been talking about it on Instagram. I'd been emailing the waitlisters. And internally for myself, in terms of my own leadership, I had this internal knowing that Nectar was going to book out because we had so many people reaching out to us, you know, asking about the program, who were clicking on the links. So there was a lot of evidence to show that, you know, people were super interested. And at the same time, you know, I was like, wait, is this all gonna like not work out, right? Like that part of your brain that's just anticipating like something's gonna not work here and it's not gonna end up the way that I wanted it to end up. And I had this internal sense in my own body and my own nervous system that it would just take like the first 1 or 2 people to really break the dam and open up the doors to allow for people to really start joining at a more rapid rhythm. And my goal had been to book out the program in a week, the same way that we did for the waitlist. And what ended up happening is we booked it out in like 2.5 weeks. And so it was a bit longer than our initial launch, which made a ton of sense because we actually didn't have any incentives. By the time we got to the regular launch, we didn't have any like more than $1,000 off incentives for people. And so we were launching at the regular price of $5,555. And, there were people there who had been following me, since the first launch of Nectar. So for at least 6 months, if not more. And then there were also people who were super new to my audience. So they were really in the early stages of getting to know who I was. And so it was a matter of me actually attuning with Nectar as an offering and tuning into what are the messages that need to be spoken out in this moment to help illuminate, how this program is going to support someone and how this program is really going to, help you to create, the receiving that you want to create inside of your business. And so through that whole first week, I was in the space of both oscillating between trust and contraction and wondering whether it was going to work, but then continuing to anchor into my channel and my relationship with Nectar in and of itself, to allow the messages that were meant to come through. And so I created content on Instagram, engaged on my stories. One of the ways that I really get people hyped up inside of the launch is to celebrate every single person who comes in through the program, because I'm so happy that people are joining and I'm sharing it with my community. And that also really helps to generate momentum and excitement with the people who are watching you, right? And then one of the things that I did before we even officially opened doors is we did have a turn on event. So a smaller event that really helped people to anchor into the medicine of Nectar. And I ended up charging for that particular event. So it was a $22 event. Normally I do them for free, but it really felt important for me to charge a nominal amount. And part of that was I really wanted people who were super in resonance with what I was providing, because it usually supports you to just get more high quality leads for someone who's already willing to pay something nominal to step into an experience with you. And my intention was to just kind of get really quality leads versus quantity. And the last, free offering that I led, I had more than 100 people register for it. And so my intention, because we already had such a robust wait list for Nectar, I already had a ton of leads, was to bring in some really high quality leads through a smaller paid offering before we even launched. So we did a Money Like Honey event that was $22, and we actually had over 150 people join that. And it was a really powerful 2-day event where I led people through an experience in their body and really kind of related the content inside of that to what we were diving into even deeper inside of Nectar. So it really gave people who were newer in my audience, who hadn't experienced my work but were curious, a chance to really attune to me, attune to my energy, attune to the way that I teach, have an experience within their body to see if the work that I do inside of Nectar would resonate for them. And we had a ton of people who converted from just that offering. So it gave the opportunity for people who had been hanging out on the wait list to experience me if they didn't know me. And it also gave people who had just found me the space to experience me as well. And so that just helped to build trust with my audience, right? And helped to build connection with my audience. And so we had a couple of people from that event who ended up converting into Nectar. And we also had some folks who had stepped onto the wait list a while ago who joined Nectar. this particular enrollment who didn't want to miss out again before I booked out. And so, we had the first week, we had about 8 women join, and then we already had about 11 women who were in the program before we officially launched, because we had done some back end invitations. And so we were already up to about 15, 16 people by the end of the second week. And then the third week really brought it home, where we welcomed in all the other women. What was different about the second launch is I had more sales calls with folks. In the first launch of Nectar, I had 2 sales calls total. And this one, I actually haven't counted the sales calls, but it was probably upwards of 5 or 6 sales calls. And about 2 of those converted into sales in Nectar. A lot of the women who joined this cohort of Nectar also ended up joining without a sales call, and sometimes had conversations with me on Instagram. So just to dispel any myths that, for a 5-figure offering that you have to have sales calls, you do not. You just have to be in resonance with the offering and be in confidence of what you're providing, and approach your sales from that energy and from that space. And you can absolutely enroll people without having sales calls. I provide the option of sales calls if people want to just feel me in the space, because I think that if you're, investing in a higher ticket offering, if that's something that your nervous system needs in order to establish safety, then I'm happy to provide it. And I also don't require it. And I invite people to join if they simply trust their body and know that they're meant to be in it, right? And so I welcome in people from all different decision-making capacities. The launch was easeful because I had so much pre-banked content, because I had already so much confidence and conviction in this program, because I had really calibrated in my nervous system to this program over and over again, and I was really in relationship with it. I showed up in devotion to the program and to the work, and I also was really calibrating my nervous system to receiving these women, to receiving 20 plus women into the program, and allowing my body to feel safe with it. A lot of the times, one of the things that I see with clients is when they're looking to invite in more women than they've ever held inside of a space, there can be a lot of constriction in the body to holding more people, because they're afraid that they're going to screw something up or fail, or that they won't be able to hold that many people, or whatever kinds of pieces show up within their field. And so I really worked in my nervous system to feel juicy with 20 plus women being held inside of the space. And strategically on the back end, I had pre-banked content that I had my team repurpose when I couldn't post. When I had other things going on, when I was busy with clients, I had my team repurpose old content, put it in a new energy. I wrote out some quote cards, things that we could use during the launch. But a lot of it is we were operating from a previous launch, right? And in that previous launch, I felt so in flow. I felt so in my ease and in my pleasure. And so that continued to get conveyed inside of this content. So a huge part of the ease that was present inside of this launch is because, I'm at a multiple 5-figure level per month in my business. I'm at multiple 6 figures in my business. I have a team that is supporting me, that I can really delegate to, and back-end systems to support it. Where, we have all of our content banked. I have someone on my team that I really trust to, reword the content, position it differently. And I promoted the program all the time, promoted wins. I had, interviews with past clients. And one of the things that I did was I really tweaked the strategy. I tweaked the messaging. when I didn't see people responding the way that I wanted to or reflecting back, like high open rates in my emails, click-throughs, I thought about, okay, what do people need to hear at this stage in order to support them to make the best decision for themselves? And really showed up in resonance with the offering and with, the women who were meant to step in. And so I think we have this like idea that our launches are static. We plan them, we schedule them, and then this is how it works. And for me, it's usually actually been like completely calibrated to my nervous system and the rhythm and the pace of that particular launch, and really adjusting as needed and tuning into what the offering needed me to do to be in true devotion to it and an honoring to it and an honoring of the clients that I wanted in the space. So I consider launches to be living and breathing energies that need different things that we can't possibly predict when we are planning a launch. So I create a lot of spaciousness for things to change and shift. I create a lot of spaciousness for my messaging to be even further adjusted and anchored in through that relational process. And, in terms of my own practices, I'm noticing my leadership edges. I'm noticing where I want to hide. And I'm stepping into those leadership edges and really allowing myself to sink into confidence. I am always doing the money work inside of my nervous system. So it was less about calibrating to that specific launch in and of itself, and more about calibrating to the monthly revenue amount that I'm letting my nervous system feel safe with, which at this point is $85 to $100K per month. And so I was working with that money calibration in my own nervous system. And from that space, a lot of things emerged just in terms of how I showed up, how I led myself, right? And that really calibrated me in a whole different kind of way. And so that was a lot of my nervous system work, my leadership work in terms of, honoring my edges and stepping into them. And, even when I was hearing crickets, even when people weren't joining and I wasn't getting the instant gratification of like, oh, this is working, right? That I continued on. I continued to be in devotion to the offering and to my deep trust and knowing that this program was going to book out no matter what. It was happening no matter what. And my task was to show up in resonance with the soul of the offering and with my work in the world, and to spread the message because I believe in it, because I trust in it, because I've seen the incredible transformation that has happened as a result of people stepping into this portal with me. And so it was about me communicating that to my audience and being in resonance with that message. And even when I didn't feel like it, showing up or asking my team to support me inside of that. One of the major gaps inside of this launch was definitely my email strategy. I was approaching it not very organized, I would say. I was flowing with it a lot more. And, as we move forward, I really want to be intentional and grounded and rooted in the message and the journey that I'm taking my clients through on the wait list. As I, tell people the story of Nectar and what makes this program powerful and how that it's for you and time for you to step in and join. So looking forward, I want to be a little bit more grounded and strategic, quote unquote, in terms of how I am inviting people in through email. And that's one of my growth edges, is my email strategy inside of my business and booking out my programs. That's going to create even more ease for me the second time or the third time I launch Nectar, right? And so the ease was really created by me continually doing the nervous system work, by getting myself into resonance and regulation when I was having a day of doubt or, dysregulation, taking care of my body first, taking care of my nervous system first, tending to my needs, and then allowing myself to really show up for the launch, regardless of, what was happening within me, or asking support from my team in order to do that. And really being connected to the knowing that it was booking out no matter what, and holding that inside of my body, truly. So I think strategically, it's really about providing value to your audience, preparing them for the launch, letting them know something is coming, allowing them to really anchor into the content, understanding the value of what you provide and why it matters to them and their life and their business. And then giving them the solution, right? And so I have been doing that really consistently from the moment that this program came out into the world, and really anchoring my messaging into what this program really does and supports people with. And it's paid off, 100-fold, and will continue to, because the momentum of this program will continue to ripple out even into the third cohort that we're going to start next year. So, and another piece that I really want to anchor in terms of like letting your nervous system hold it, be prepared, and strategically anchoring into all of that, is because I knew I was welcoming in such a high volume of women. I also aligned my back end systems to be able to receive that amount of women. So, onboarding forms for the women, systems that would support, the payment of that, emails that went out, like ways that we were situating people into pods. Because if you don't know how you're going to be able to actually hold the amount of women or the amount of clients in general that you want to welcome in, your nervous system is going to close off instinctually to some of that. And what I tend to see is like women who might be really great at being in the creative flow, and inside of all of that, as they talk about their, launch, their program that they're putting out into the world, but then might not have the back end systems to really support a huge influx of money or clients. And their nervous system closes off because they're kind of anticipating it being really stressful, and it's totally an unconscious thing. But whenever a client comes to me and says, hey, I want like 50 people inside of this program, like, amazing, let's do it. Do you feel like you can hold 50 people? Is your business set up for that? Do you feel safe to hold that many people inside of the space? Do you feel safe to hold that amount of money? Right? And so that both is a nervous system calibration to help you feel safe, and it's also allowing that calibration to trickle out into the systems and the strategies within your business and how that's being held in the actual structure of your business, right? And so team, other systems, right? All of that come into you welcoming in a big volume of people and a big volume of money. And so that was a huge piece that I calibrated to actually very early on with the very first launch that I did of Nectar. I knew I needed to hire a COO. I knew I needed to upgrade my systems. And that all came through my calibration meditations with money, through my calibration meditations with the soul of the offering. And I took action on it, right? I listened to what was coming through, and I took action, and I implemented it and created the systems and took the leaps, invested in big ways before I saw the evidence of those women coming in, of that volume of clients coming in. And that is super, super important as you are truly resonating and calibrating to that huge, huge numbers and huge growth. So those are the core pieces that I really wanted to share with you about this like super easeful 6-figure launch of Nectar. I hope that you received so much from what I shared here that you can apply in your own business. And if you aren't connected with me on Instagram, please connect with me at I am Anna Kinkela on IG. You can grab a free meditation that's linked below. And in the next couple of months, I'm going to be launching a really incredible program that I'm so, so excited about. That's actually a sister program to Nectar. And I'm going to be teaching a lot of these components about nervous system business growth. And so I'm so, so excited to be putting it out into the world and to announce it. And so stay tuned, hop onto my email list, follow me on Instagram to learn all of the details. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you tuning in. If you loved this episode, please share it with your friends, your other entrepreneur friends. and leave us a review on iTunes so that other folks can find us. And I will see you next time.